Yes, and hello there! It is I, the conspicuous Moo, and today I want to take us on a short and, let's be honest, mildly depressing journey through the state of Shadowlands professions. Now, for my part, I don't expect a great deal from engineering when it comes to sellable, popular, and profitable items, but you know I usually get by on a steady diet of mounts, toys, and pets. However, this time out, I have no mounts to make, no toys, one pet, and even my battle res traps require engineering to use, and I'm sure that my fellow tinkerers can manage to make their own. I'm not the most grievously afflicted, though. I think jewel crafters perhaps take that booby prize. I guess they can craft the base rings and necks for the legendaries, but it's pretty grim reading after that. And you know, this is a malaise that has infected the other crafting professions too, useful for legendary bases, and that's it, but more on that later. So today we'll go over some of the basic problems with Shadowlands professions, what can be done to improve them, and if there are other options for making professions an enjoyable activity in World of Warcraft again. So, let's get cracking. First, a problem that was created at the beginning of World of Warcraft and has persisted to this day, the profession limit. Now, the limit of 2 professions per character is an anachronism. You know, it calls back to a time when Blizzard was actively encouraging players to interact with one another and, you know, trade and pay for services that they otherwise couldn't access. You know, it was a way to cooperate in guilds and bind those together. You could contribute to the greater good. It also harkens back to an era where there were far more things to create, a much wider field, and, you know, dedication to your actual chosen profession would, you know, in turn, after a lot of work, lead to some great rewards. But none of these things apply anymore. Over the years, Blizzard have made it increasingly easy to become a solo player in their MMORPG with a smorgasbord of systems designed to bypass all of that pesky socialization. So it would stand to reason that professions would be similarly changed so that one character could level everything. However, this only happened to all the games around us. MMOs that are themselves now closing in on a decade of existence have far surpassed the limitations put upon us in World of Warcraft. You can take every profession, you can learn all the rare recipes, and you can make a decent and satisfying living from the fruits of your high-end endeavours. Now, is the life of an all-rounder profession guru going to be the best option for everyone? Absolutely not. I, for example, would probably not bother with this. Why go to all that trouble when Jeff has maxed out enchanting and regularly dumps vellums full of goodies into the guild bank? But at least give the players the option to do that if they so choose. 2 professions maximum is archaic. It compares poorly to World of Warcraft's competitors, and it serves no logical purpose. I mean, the champions of Azeroth apparently are nifty at mining ore nodes, but they can't pick flowers. I mean, come on. Moving on. Do you remember the struggles you had getting all the recipes you wanted in Shadowlands? Yeah, me neither. The longest I had to wait was reaching Exalted with the Ascended, which, you know, isn't exactly a feat of strength by itself if you've been world questing since launch. You know, where have all the rare patterns gotten to? Once upon a time, a player could make some decent coin all by themselves if they had the right enchant or the best in-slot boots or the scope of an elite marksman. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong, in my humble bovine opinion, in making some of the more powerful recipes rather difficult to obtain, so that you yourself can enjoy the fruits of your labour once you get them. Now, some drops could be good old-fashioned RNG in dungeons and raids, and could be sold for megabucks in the auction house by those fortunate enough to snaffle them up. Others could be the result of research, or exploration, for example, or it could be an incredibly lucky find in a random chest out in the world. It could be part of the skilling up process. It could be combinations of reagents from other professions, which has been done before. Or, you know, acquired from crafting many of the same item until reaching a certain proficiency along the same lines as the legendary bases have been built. So there are great possibilities and profits to be made from having the best of the best, harder to get, and accordingly harder to craft. It just seems that we don't really need everyone to acquire all of the recipes at the same time with minimal effort, because that just makes for stagnant professions and very, very low profit margins. Let's bring back the professions minigame to those who want to play it and are keen on dedicating time to being the elite in their business. And yes, that'll require effort, and there's nothing wrong with that. One of the many things that trigger me in my advancing years is the copy-paste nature of so many of the professions these days. Alchemy is usually the main culprit, and in terms of flasks, it's on top form again in Shadowlands. I mean, this time, they haven't even bothered to separate the strength, intellect, and agility ones. It's just one bottle that magically changes to your primary stat when you switch roles. I mean, that is incredibly lazy. I was quite optimistic when I first saw the Crafter's Mark system, but ultimately it was for making gear as you leveled up, something that Blizzard made deliberately easier than ever. I mean, did the profession guy talk to the rest of the development team when he came up with this? What is the value in creating a new system that obsoletes itself in a matter of hours? At least there was an idea that was different from the norm, and that norm is a very well-worn path now. Do you want blacksmiths, tailors, and leatherworkers to feel like their existence isn't dependent upon how many legendary bases they can make and sell? How about giving them recipes that enable them to make gear that's worth selling to other players? It's not a revolutionary concept. The ceremonious set, for example, plate, is eye level 100 and is you can start equipping them from about level 50. So that's useful for practically nobody, given that your eye level is way above that. It's around 140 by the time you reach top level. That is a pathetic level of profession design, frankly. How does an idea like that even make it to the test servers, let alone live? The Shadowghast armor is little better, given that it isn't even heroic dungeon level. And this isn't a new problem either. The crafting profession suffered the same issues in Battle for Azeroth. Now, if you look back into the past, Warlords of Draenor, a strong competitor for the worst expansion ever, had the ability to upgrade the armor you could create to levels that players recognized as worthwhile. And if Warlords of Draenor is beating you at something, then your system is objectively terrible. Now, they did have the key to making things more interesting in this idea of optional reagents, but unfortunately optional reagents have very, very little value if the gear you're installing them on are around 40 eye levels lower than your average player is right now. Another side issue to all of this dreary design is the fact that the stats have become increasingly homogenized, which leaves Blizzard with less potential for new takes on old staples. Nothing seems to come out now with stun duration reduction, or immunity, or slows, or disarms, or incapacitates, or AoE splash damage, debuff removal, or debuff application even. You know, it doesn't need to be procky stuff on gear, it can be intelligent use of consumables at the right moment to gain an edge in a contest. But now, these days, you just get your increased primary stat for 25 seconds, a speed increase, an invisibility pot, and apparently the job's done. Now, take a look at this gnome. She has no head enchant, no shoulder enchant, the bracer enchant is either intellect or meh, the glove enchant is strength or meh, the boots are agility or meh, there's no legs enchant, there's no belt socket. Now that's not just me being lazy, that is Blizzard's entire design philosophy when it comes to augmenting your gear at the moment. So someone at Blizzard actually looked at that and thought, yep, that's fine. Minimalistic is in. It certainly seems to be their design philosophy. Do you remember when scribes had shoulder enchants? I remember. And I'm sure they'd like those back again. What about metagems that had different effects when they were activated by the right combinations? You know, remember those jewel crafters I mentioned? Those poor back-of-the-room malingerers? They're whimpering. They remember. How about blacksmiths that when they could create, additional sockets and sell them? Well, that was actually in the pipeline for Shadowlands, but then it was replaced by Venari and her Stygia farm. Enchanters, oh goodness, have had such a raw deal this expansion. There's so little to actually make, and it's so cheap these days. You remember leatherworkers? They had legs and wrists, I think it was in Wrath, and it wasn't just flat stamina, but it was stats that mattered to people, depending on their role. And believe me, players will want to make their main and their best ults the best that they can possibly be. They will pay huge, heaving amounts of gold to any professioneers who can provide those services. I would gladly fill every slot with an improvement if any were actually offered by Blizzard. Instead, I have a gathering enchant on my hands and agility boots as a mistweaver. Think of the fun you could have just improving aspects of your character. Blacksmiths making serrated blades in your gloves for bleed or increased poison effects. Leatherworkers crafting leg plates that increase your armor or dodge or crit or attack power or run speed. Shield spikes, weapon chains, none of this stuff is new. It's just been taken away and rendered useless through level restrictions and an appalling lack of imagination and care. Now, if the greater customization options in Shadowlands have shown players are very interested in making their character unique. Transmog is a very big thing for me, and I'm sure for many other people as well. But there are further steps that could be taken to push the envelope further that other MMO titles have already got well in hand. The ability to dye armor to the color of your choice has been a regular request over the years, and it's amazing that it hasn't been adopted by WoW as yet. All of the recoloring currently is done by the developers when they can't be bothered to create a new set. Same thing happens with mounts, put it in a new color and we're done. All I'm asking is that we get the same ability. Now, scribes would be the obvious choice for dye creators, and you know, you've got a whole new market and interest in customization that could just begin. And you know, how about opening up the possibilities of armor design? I can't be the only leatherwearer who wished that some of the cloth looks came in my armor type. Enter the leatherworker to make one for me and my transmog. And if your paladin tank wants to come to raid in a skimpy cloth ensemble without the attendant non-plate penalties, then let's make that happen. Having the ability to cross over and expand the range of looks would be a gigantic business opportunity for many crafters. Now, of course, it's early days in Shadowlands, so there's plenty of time to improve upon the dried scabs and shed skin that comprises most of the profession so far. But we haven't had any news about improvements in Edition and patch 9.1 as yet, so I guess we'll have to wait until pre-patch drops, which in the greatest of Blizzard Warcraft editions is soon. But you know, I've put out a few suggestions there, and do feel free to add your own. How are your two professions holding up? Are they as underwhelming as mine are? Are you in fact making plenty of money, thank you very much, and so you don't know what my problem is? Let me know in the comments below. I will be back soon, as 9.0.5 is going to launch soon, and I'm interested, as I'm sure we all are, to see how the changes affect the class fortunes. Windwalkers in particular could find the future a little challenging. Anyway, for now, I am the Conspicuous Moo, and a very good afternoon to you.